Hey, Rebel Bankers, it's your host, Chris Noggle, and I've got a special guest with me today. I've got Michael Young from Princeton Pacific Properties and Investments. So one of the unique things about Michael is he is a 30-plus year veteran in this business, and we're going to hear about some really interesting stuff with doing this. We're going to hear about some of the obstacles he's overcome and how he got started, and a lot more than that. But let me talk a little bit about you and you getting started to your journey of being a Rebel Banker. So there's a lot of times and a lot of things that are going to happen in your real estate investing journey. You know, some of them are going to be great, the ultimate highs, and some of them are going to be the lows. And that's just the nature of the beast. But what this podcast is designed to do is to give you some insight into the journey of some real powerhouse investors, how they've done it so that you can get there faster and more efficiently. And the other big thing, the big barrier and burden that everybody says is money. How you're going to find money for your deals. And that's another thing we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about your journey to getting all the money you'd ever need to fund all the deals you'd ever want. We talk about that a lot. So to get started with your journey, grab a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide, to teach you where the source of the money is and how to actually go after it. But let's just jump right into this. Michael, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start off real quick, Michael, with where your business is today. You know, you've got 30 plus years, over 2,000 clients served. I mean, you got a lot of things to talk about as a veteran. Tell them a little bit about your business, how you're operating today, and what it all looks like.
Well, I essentially run two businesses under one roof. One is Princeton Pacific Properties, which is a real estate brokerage firm based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then we have another aspect of the firm, which is the investment side of the firm. So, for example, we do 100, 110 deals this year closed on the brokerage end. After paying taxes on that income and personal expenses, everything, all that's left will go into a fund that will then go and invest in mobile home parks and apartment buildings. And I've essentially been doing that for 30 years.
That's great. And, you know, you mentioned something in there that really piqued my interest, and that's the mobile home parks, because I keep hearing that over and over again. And, you know, we all know growing up, you know, we've seen the mobile home parks, maybe some of our family, you know, had some time at mobile home parks, but we all know about it, but we never really dive in and look at it as a solid investment. But I keep hearing about it. So I'm excited to hear more about that. But before we get to that, Michael, tell us a little bit about how you got started. I mean, it's 30 years ago. Take us on a journey back to the humble beginnings and how it all started, and maybe some of the things that happened that got you where you're at today.
I started essentially around the age of 19 or 20. I was out of high school. I was going to community college, just taking classes here and there, but really I was a musician most of the time, which meant playing 3-4 nights a week, not really going to class, sleeping late, and really having not much direction. My father at the time had a retail furniture business for many, many, many years. And for about 10 or 15 years after that, he got into building mobile home parks. And he had started to build one. And I went to him without any pressure from him whatsoever and said, you know, I really don't think I'm not going to move to Los Angeles. I'm not going to move to New York and be a studio musician. It's not my character to take orders from some producer. Can I just kind of hang around and see what you do? He said, sure, we're starting a new one, and if you'd like to hang around, you can certainly do that. And so with that, I started at the bottom, basically cleaning toilets and answering the phone and, you know, just doing everything that, not what he told me to do, but what his other people told me to do. And the good news is, or unfortunately, the bad news, my father, about 6 months into the project, had a very serious heart attack. And all of a sudden, we had a 100-unit mobile home park that in the middle of being constructed. So almost overnight, I had to, with my sister, take over pretty much everything, because my father was in the hospital, then he was at home. And we had to learn everything from selling the houses to developing the parks to building the clubhouse, to working with contractors, to working with the city, to working with, tenants and management. And so I had to learn every facet of developing a mobile home park. This was, again, in 1980, 83, 84. was 20 years old. So I had to. That was basically my version of college. And I chose to still live at home because I felt that while most of my friends were away at college or leaving home, I thought it was best for me to stick around and learn from my father and have him mentor me. So he came back around 6 months or a year later. We then were going into phase 2 of the property, and then he got renal cancer, which is cancer of the kidney. So then he was out again for another year. So at this point, I was starting to get the hang of things. I was really becoming very obsessed with every facet of real estate, from building it to selling it to managing it to basically learning how to run a business and working 7 days a week, never looking at the clock, basically working probably 18 to 20 hours a day. But I didn't care because I was very happy, very, very obsessed with what I was doing. We finished the project about 4 years later. By that time, I was almost in my mid-20s. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, it's 1986, whatever year it was, 85, 86. I don't think, you're going to be retiring. I don't think I really want to run around the country developing mobile home parks, but I do like real estate. And he said, well, you better get your broker's license because God knows after this, you're never going to be able to work for anybody again. So I did get my broker's license, and I went to work for Coldwell Banker for a couple of years. And that was great because it's a fine company, and I got training I need. And then I decided, because I really wanted to use real estate as a vehicle to become wealthy. I was not interested in selling homes the rest of my life, even though that could be the vehicle to create wealth. So I decided that I was going to go on my own, which I did. And the company, it was called Michael Young Company. And right away, just started selling houses, continuing what I was doing. But I also started investing in residential real estate. And that's all I've been doing now since, again, for 30 plus years. That's pretty much it.
No, that's a good story. I loved a lot of the takeaways from that story. One of them being that you decided not to go to school and you were going to mentor with your father because that knowledge, that wisdom was going to be so much more valuable. And look at it, it certainly was. And we hear that a lot, and in life, we're always being brought up. I know myself and I'm sure a lot of the audience were being brought up saying, you got to go to school, you got to get an education, you got to do this, you got to do that. But sometimes in life, something happens and it shows you the direction you're supposed to go. And maybe that direction isn't the conventional way. It's not the conventional knowledge, not the conventional wisdom that we all are, I guess I would say it's shoved down your throat. So what you said there is the perfect summary of that. I mean, you just went that direction, you fell in love with it. And, 30 plus years later, where you're at now, I don't know what does your business look like today? I mean, just number wise, everybody always likes to judge the success of a business based on where you're at. I mean, you've done 2,000 plus clients served, but I mean, how many units are you managing? I mean, what does it look like from that standpoint?
So I currently control about between 350 and 400 units. And I say
fantastic
because when I buy a mobile home park, sometimes we'll actually own the homes as well as the land underneath it. Sometimes we'll keep them, sometimes we won't. So right now it's somewhere between 350 to 400 doors, so to speak. And that's apartment buildings and mobile home parks. My goal is by 2028 to actually own 3,000. That's the goal.
That's good.
I'm far away from that, but that is the goal.
Now, when you buy the properties, are you doing everything as passive income? Are you selling off a lot of the properties or flipping or doing anything like that? What is your strategy and your model? Is it strictly passive?
It's strictly passive. So it's very much, I'm an add value buyer. So I want to buy things that are mismanaged, misallocated in how they're, funding the properties. Basically people that either have bought something that never should have bought it in the first place, or they've owned it for a long time, they're tired of it, or they become best friends with their tenants, they haven't raised the rents for 5 or 10 years. I don't look at cap rates. I don't look at the return. All I want to know is what can that property be after I take it over and fix it up and raise the rents. And then the formula is to keep it forever, unless I 1031 into something larger. What I want to do is I want to buy that property for, say, $2 or $3 million, maybe put $1 million into it and within a couple of years, it's worth double that. I'll get my initial money back that I put into it, so I'll have no money into it, but have a beautiful cash flow.
That's the way to do it, Michael.
Forever. And so it's basically an infinite return.
Yeah.
That's why cap rates are irrelevant. I don't care. Yeah.
It's tough to run a cap rate on an infinite return, right?
It's just not relevant. So I'm going to look at something the way Warren Buffett looks at it. I'm going to look at it long-term, 20, 30, 50-year hold, not let's buy it and flip it. I have no interest in that. All I care about is the passive income. And even as important, the depreciation that I'm going to get from that property. And that's people don't seem to look at. Depreciation is sometimes not maybe as important, but it's extremely important, because if I make $1 million or $2 million as earned income, I want that depreciation properties to negate that earned income, so I pay little of no taxes, legally.
Oh yeah, the depreciation is a huge reason. I mean, any successful real estate investor talks a lot about depreciation and the impact of that, to making a lot of money, and not just making money, but keeping that money long term. And you better do that, because
it's not how much you make, it's how much you
keep. Exactly, I love that. Warren Buffett says that a lot, so that's a certain golden nugget right there. Now, on this journey, this 30 years, you covered some of that, the ups and downs, but let's focus a little bit about the money aspect. So in doing that, and you're in San Francisco, correct? And is that always been where you've been doing business?
Right, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. Specifically, I live in a place called Marin County, California, which is right over the Golden Gate Bridge. Mm-hmm. It's a suburb of the San Francisco Bay Area.
And it's safe to say that real estate there is quite expensive, correct?
It's extremely expensive, yes.
All right. So in that,
relative to the rest of the country, yes.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think anyone that knows, California is always looked at as an expensive place to buy real estate in the first place, but San Francisco and the Bay Area, through the roof. So in doing that, how has the money piece been? Have you ever, had to go out and use a lot of private money? And I know you kind of talked a little bit about it where, you move it over into the fund, but let's dive deeper into that, because this is the real estate money school. So let's talk about money real quick. Tell us a little bit about just the journey, and maybe even back to those, your mid-20s. What was it like when you were doing these projects, these multi-million-dollar projects? Did you ever have money issues? And if you did, how did you solve them?
Well, I was raised, and I'm very, very conservative with money. It doesn't mean I don't like nice things. I very much appreciate nice things, and that is the reward, or one of the rewards of investing and being prudent with money. But I think what people have to understand is that it all comes down to everything has to be about the asset and asset building. One thing I learned a long, long time ago is the asset pays for your life. Earned income should never pay for your life. So if you make earned income, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a real estate broker, that earned income, you're going to pay the taxes on it, then you're going to pay your personal expenses. And then you're going to put aside that money into a bank account. You're going to let that money grow over 6 months or a year or 3 years, whatever it is. And then you're going to shove that money into a real estate deal. Maybe once or twice or 3 times you're going to do that. And as our good friend Grant Cardone would say, you're going to go broke. All of a sudden, you're going to have no money except for some day savings. And then those assets over the years are going to pay for your Porsche. They're going to pay for your Patek Philippe watch. They're going to pay for your $2, $3, $4 million house if you even choose to house, which I don't believe is a very good thing to do. But if you're worth 20, 30, 40 million bucks, you deserve to do something stupid and buy a house or buy a Porsche or a Ferrari or Patek Philippe's or whatever you want to do. And this is going to probably turn off a lot of your clients, so forgive me ahead of time.
It's okay. Be honest. That's it. It's the only thing.
Really, when you're growing in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and even your 50s, it's one man's opinion, everything should be around building your asset base. Your assets pay for your house, your insurance, your kids, your cars, your food, everything. Your tenants are paying for your life. The bank is paying you to buy a piece of property so that the tenants will pay you. It's very, very simple. Mm-hmm. The mistake that people make is they make a lot of money in real estate or stocks or whatever it is. They take that earned income, then they blow it on a house or a Rolex watch or a Porsche or a Ferrari, whatever it is. Choose your drug. And that's a huge mistake. It should be put into the asset, and the asset pays for that life. And that's the mistake I see 95% of the population make if they choose to invest.
Well, I couldn't agree more, because that's exactly what we teach in money school. We teach people all the money is.
Yeah, you see people make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year, and they have nothing to show for it 5, 10, 15, 20 years later. That is very sad to me. And I've seen it all throughout my career.
Yeah, they get the money, and then it's gone, and then and then it's gone. It's just a repeating cycle. I call it the hamster wheel, and the only way to get the hamster wheel is to start learning how money really works and have your money go to work and work harder for you than it is today. Because so many people, they make the money and they just park it, and they, whether it be compound interest, they just put it somewhere that's not making them passive income. Your money's got to be working for you. Your money's always got to be making you more money. And that's the thing that people don't, well, that's what they don't teach, right, Michael? They don't teach that in schools. They don't teach that anywhere. They want you to park their money, your good dollars today. They want you to park that money today and rely on that slow building compound interest. And, someday later, they'll pay you back with weaker dollars. That's what we're taught. And it's a complete lie.
Yeah, it is. Well, here's what it is. So I've seen guys and gals 10 times smarter than me, much higher IQs, much better in everything. And unfortunately, they were never taught it, or they never took it to heart, never learned it. When I was growing up a long time ago, you could put $100,000 in a bank and get 10% of your money, and it would double in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Live in that world anymore. We're in a fiat currency. I'm not going to go down that road, so don't worry about it. But we're in where the Fed is running everything, running massive deficits, interest rates to the ground, so that the bank takes your money, invests it in real estate, and pays you nothing. So, for example, and I tell this to people all the time, some accept it, some don't. Go to Bank of America or Chase and tell them that you'd like to borrow $1 million to buy their stock. They won't give you the money.
Absolutely not.
If you say to Chase or Bank of America or Wells Fargo, take your pick, you say, listen, I have a $3 million property. I want to put down $1 million. I want you to give me $2 million. It's going to pay me an 8% return. They will lock the doors and chain you to the desk. They will not let you leave the bank. Now, that tells you all you need to know about what the bank does themselves. But they're going to pay you 0.25% to park it in their establishment. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't put your money in the bank, but if you're sitting on dollars, you're a fool. It's a different world. And it's going to be that way as long as I can tell, because we just run anyway. I don't want to go down a whole economics thing.
No. Honestly, keep going with this, because this is
you got to just know that savers are losers.
Yep.
The money, because if you don't get that if that's where the banks and the big insurance companies and institutional monies and Goldman Sachs and Blackstone, that's where they put their money. They don't put it in the bank. It's going to sit there and collect dust. It's got to work. It's a currency. You have to move. So I learned that, fortunately, when I was very young.
Well, what's so unique about that is you don't know me very well, and you've never seen me speak on stage, or you've never heard me talk about the money school, but everything you just said, almost to an exact science, is what we teach from stage. It's what we talk about. We talk about how banks work. We talk about you mimicking what banks do in your own personal life. And we talk about not believing everything you've been taught your whole life, which is, it's a mind shift. And it's a mind shift for people to do, because we're so trained to do exactly what you were just saying you shouldn't do. Park your money. And then what does the bank do? They do exactly what you should be doing. They go out and they loan that money out on secured tangible assets, or they go out and they buy real estate and make passive income. Their money's always in motion, but we're taught and trained to leave our money alone and not put our money in motion. And you have to sometimes just get off the hamster wheel and start asking, why is it that they teach this? But it's so simple to understand.
Well, they don't teach it because it's unfortunate. God bless our teachers. You can't teach something you don't know.
Right.
And if you're making $30,000 to $50,000 a year, how could you possibly teach a young child or a young adult or a teenager? You can't teach them. I mean, you could, technically. They don't do it themselves. Maybe some do. But you can't teach what you don't know. So that puts the onus on you and me. We have to teach ourselves. We have to find people. We have to have mentors. We have to read books. The great news is now with the web, it's all there. There's no more excuse I didn't know or nobody taught me. All you have to do is go online and look. There are thousands of videos on passive income, on the history of money, on currency, on debt, on the Federal Reserve, on banking. Everything you want to know is out there. So it's up to you. I just always wanted to know because I always wanted to be wealthy. So I've done, like you, it sounds like the same. I've done to study wealthy people my whole life.
It's all I've done too. I get on a plane and I go where the wealthy are and I listen to them and I watch them and I mimic what they do. That's all I do.
Yeah, study the Sam Zells, study whether you love them or hate them, study the Trumps, study all the big real estate guys. If you're in real estate, that's all I've done for 30 plus years. And it's all right there. You don't have to go to college. You definitely don't have to have a very high IQ, that's for sure, because I don't. But you do have to pay attention. And you do have to have a very strong burning desire and very clear goals about what you want and where you want to go.
And one of the hardest things, I mean, that all sounds so simple in theory for everybody that's listening to this, but one of the hardest parts about that is stop listening to people that haven't done it. Stop listening to people telling you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. The advisor said don't do this, and start looking at why they're telling you that. First off, like you were mentioning with teachers don't know this because they can't apply it. They haven't been taught this. They haven't lived in that world where they're privy to that information. Financial advisors are going to give you, and I can speak this way because I was an advisor for 16 years. Financial advisors aren't going to tell you the secrets of the wealthy because that would basically make them lose a job. It's really what it would much make them lose a job, but it would take money out of their pocket. So why would they do that?
The fastest way. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No. Please, you go ahead.
I was going to say that the fastest way to pre-qualify somebody is to ask them directly what their net worth is. And if it's anything less than 8 figures, say, thank you very much. Get you and politely get out of that conversation, because if you want to find out about money, if they're not at or above 8 figures, then you have to, you're talking to the wrong person. So you have to find people that have done it, understand it, and more importantly, if they're able to, if they're willing to let you learn from them. And then it's up to you to ask them to mentor you or to ask questions, because it's hard to, sometimes they may not mentor you because they're not going to have time to mentor you, but they certainly might put you in the right direction.
Well, the one thing I've learned, I'm sure you've come across this, is those very, I don't want to call them the uber wealthy, but the wealthy, like what we're just talking about, the 8 figures. Those people, so many people are afraid to talk to them. They're afraid to go up to them. Those people are some of the most available people. They will make themselves available. They will tell you what the truth is. They will tell you how they got where they are, and they will throw you golden nuggets. And if you want them to mentor, it's very simple. Find a way to solve a problem for them. Find a way to serve them, solve a problem for them, or if all else fails, pay them. And, that's how I've done it. And I don't know how you've gotten your information from, the people that know this stuff, but a lot of what I've done is follow them around, take an interest, offer to serve something, in their business, some function, and help them in one way or the other, or simply pay for their time. And it's that simple. There is no free lunch.
Yeah, there's no free lunch, and you can do that, and you can also go where they are. You've got to go where the money is.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant by, finding that way. I mean, if you got to get on a plane, you got to go to an event that they're speaking at, and if you got to pay for the VIP so that you have access to them, hey, just pay the money. Don't worry about how much you have. Don't worry about how much that's going to hurt, because you know what's going to hurt the most? You living in the life that isn't where you want to be your entire life. That's what's going to hurt the most. And if it means you spending a little bit today to go out there and learn from the people that have made it, the people doing what you want, that is the best investment you'll ever make. Better than any college, better than any educational course. And I'm not trying to throw colleges down under the rug here, but there's more out there sometimes. And if that's the path you want to be, you just got to seek out that knowledge, just like you were talking about.
Every major metropolitan city, or even every small town, has a wealthy guy or gal. Your job is to find them, find them, and maybe even have them mentor you if possible, or at least try to hang around them. You have to work for them for free or pay them for their time, do it. They can give you 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days or 5 years, whatever it is. Take what you can get, because whether it's a very small town or a big metropolitan city, they're there. They're always there. Every town has a wealthy person. They may not be the wealthiest in the country, they may not be the wealthiest in the state, but start small. If you find somebody that owns, for example, in your small community, they own 100 units or 500 units or 1,000, whatever it is, find them out, seek them out, befriend them. If you have to go to a major metropolitan city 10, 20 miles away, go there. Find the wealthiest person you can. Get in front of them. Again, it comes back to what are you willing to do? What price are you willing to pay? Everything we've talked about is very simple. It's just not easy. It comes back to you looking in the mirror and saying, here's what I have to do. I know what the formula is. The formula is not hard. Now it's up to me to go and find these people and learn.
I think a lot of times that's the hardest thing for people. I know certainly firsthand the people that I see that I watch them trying to get there, and the biggest thing that they fail to do is they fail to take action. They fail to leap. They fail to get started because it looks like it's work, and I love the quote by Thomas Edison is opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and it looks like work. That is so true. And that is true today as much as it was back then, because so many people, they know what the opportunity is, but they let it go right by them because they're like, well, that looks like work. And you nailed it. It's not hard. You don't need an advanced degree in finance to understand this stuff. You don't really have to know anything. You just have to take action and do something and follow somebody that's doing what you want to do and find a way to get in that circle, find a way to be around them, find a way to get the knowledge from them. And it's so much easier than what people make it out to be, but it looks like it's hard. And then because it looks like it's hard, people don't want to work, and people are nervous to reach out and to ask people. And the second thing people need to do is they need to act on the right knowledge. There's so much knowledge out there. There's so much what I like to call conventional financial knowledge. And if you act on the wrong knowledge, it could take you down the complete wrong path. But that just goes back to finding that person in your town. Big, small, and it doesn't matter. Find that successful person, figure out what they know, and act on that knowledge. And that'll get you there twice as fast.
The only thing you really have to know, at least initially, is what you want.
That's true.
It's really the only thing you have to know. Once you know what it is you want, and that sometimes can paralyze people, but if you can figure out what it is you want, then the rest, if you really have a burning desire, will happen. It's going to be a journey. It might be a long journey, but it's going to be a journey. And you first have to have that desire. You have to say, I want to, let's say you like real estate. Let's say you say, I want to, gosh, if I own a 10-unit building or a 30-unit building, that would be everything. Well, then you might find somebody that owns that, and you say, well, gosh, they're not that much smarter than me. I've kind of figured out what they did. They're a nice person. Maybe I should go for 50 units. Maybe I should, and then it turns into 100. Then it might turn 200 or 1,000. And that's how it starts. And maybe after a while you figure out that it could be something that might be a 5 or 10 year plan. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The point I'm trying to make, it doesn't require any special education. You don't have to have a degree in anything. That's the beauty of real estate. But again, it will take a very, very strong desire. And you are going to have to pay a price.
Absolutely.
You have to ask that person that has what you don't have, what price did you pay? And then you can decide once they tell you that price, whether or not you want to pay that price or not.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And we talk about that a lot here. We talk about the highs and the lows and the journey through them. And, there's just no real smooth path. I don't think I've had a single person on this podcast, and we've had a lot, that has had an easy path. It's just been like, oh, it's been.
When you meet one, let me know. When you meet that person,
it's been so easy. Oh my God, real estate's the greatest thing ever. Yeah, I just started and look at where I'm at now. Absolutely not. Every single person, the most successful people out there in this business, they've fallen on their face multiple times. And when I say fallen on their face, I don't mean they tied their shoelace together wrong. Okay. I mean, they literally fell, hit their head on the way down about 10 times and realized when they got down, holy crap, I got to get myself back up no matter how bad it hurt. And that's what it is. And that's not going to just happen once. It might not happen twice. It doesn't matter how many times it happens. It doesn't matter how many no's you get, because eventually you're going to get a yes. It doesn't matter how many times you fail, because eventually those failures will inevitably lead to your success. And the only way you don't get to success on this journey is to quit. It's the only way. It is the only way to truly fail, is to quit.
So in my brokerage business, I prospect 4 hours a day, and I talk to between 25 and 30 people a day. 95% of those people, actually about 97% of those people I talk to, they say no, they're not interested. I'm not looking for those people. I'm looking for the 1 or 2 people or 3 people that say yes, whether it's in my brokerage business or the investment business. We look at hundreds of deals, where we choose one that works. So like everything in life, it's just a numbers game. And the sooner that somebody understands that, whether it's in brokerage or investing, the better. Because again, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you're going to get that right one.
You nailed it on the head there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting. You know, every time I go into these, I never really know what direction they're going to take. Like I said, right before we even got started for the audience, and I say this almost every time, I always tell them I kind of have a format for, you know, how the podcast goes and what we do. And I don't really remember the last one that's followed that, because we just go down the path that it's going to go. And that's kind of life in itself, right? There isn't just one pre-made path. You're going to go down the path that's going to get you to the end result the fastest and the most efficient way. And there is no easy way to do that. There's just not. And you are just another testament to exactly that it's not an easy road, but once you figure out what you want and you go after it and you start taking action, applying the right knowledge and seeking out that right knowledge, I think that's a huge thing. Seeking out the right knowledge and not waiting for that knowledge to come at you, because it's just not going to happen. And then just doing it over and over, consistently and persistently, and the results are always unbelievable.
Well, the more clear you are, the faster and the easier it will go. And what I've seen, unfortunately, with most people is that it's the lack of clarity and desire that either stops them or makes it even 10 times harder. Now, it's hard enough just doing it. But if you have very high clarity backed by a very high desire, then it makes the journey that much better. Again, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of bumps in the road. It's definitely not this for the most part. It's more like, you know, this. And as that's happening, maybe it's like that. And maybe sometimes like that, but then it starts to be like that again. So again, if you have the clarity and the desire behind that, your chances of getting through things quicker and easier and faster go up.
I agree. Well, Michael, I think, I mean, we could just keep going on all day long about this, but it's just all lands in the same place of everything you've already said. And I think we'll wrap on that. So if anybody wanted to reach out to you or they wanted to find you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, my number is 415-215-3925, 415-215-3925. My email is Michael, Michael, at Princeton, like the college, Pacific, like the ocean.com. Michael at Princeton Pacific.
And what we'll do for every one of you that are watching this is I'll post that up when we do our description. It'll have maybe not the phone number, but certainly the email to find Michael, and you can reach out to him. And just remember, you know, everything we talked about in this podcast, if you want people to help you, find a way to serve them, find a way to solve a problem for them. And that's how this world works. And that's exactly how this business works. So Michael, I thank you so much for your time today. And for all of you that are watching this podcast, I know you got some unbelievable golden nuggets out of this. And if you're a loyal follower of this podcast, you're hearing the same message over and over. These journeys, although they're different, every one of these incredibly successful investors, their journey's all different, but it's all the same in so many ways. And you're starting to see that. So getting yourself started on your journey, it just requires you to take action. It requires you to take action to becoming a rebel banker. I don't care if you start with grabbing a copy of my book, The Private Money Guide. That'll teach you where all the money is, how to actually go and get that money for your deals. There's so many sources out there, but you just have to get started. So on your journey, get started. That's the biggest advice we'll take out of this episode of the Real Estate Money School. And again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.